All right, welcome to our webinar, New Tools, How to Decide What You Really Need. So before we start this webinar, let's work on some webinar mechanic things, like how does this webinar work? Well, my name is Sharon Burton. I'm speaking. I'm a content consultant. So I'm the person that you call if you have content issues, like you think that your processes are broken, or there might be a better way to do this, or gosh, we need help moving to a new tool, that sort of thing. That's the kind of thing that I get phone calls about. I'm also a Society for Technical Communication Associate Fellow, which is something I'm really, really proud of. It's just recognition that I've been working hard in my field trying to make a difference. And then I do some other stuff. One of those other things I do is I've got 2 books out, actually a book and a report out. 8 Steps to Amazing Webinars is available on Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble, both as a physical book or as an ebook. So if you've been thinking you'd like to run webinars and you don't know where to even get, or you've been running them and thinking that maybe there was a better way to do it, you might find something useful in there. Another thing that I do is I do research on questions that I'm interested in. One of the questions that I was interested in recently was how consumers feel about product documentation. So that report is also available on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. I'm also right now running a questionnaire, an opinion poll, about how people are using product documentation and social media. So if you're interested in more information about that, see my website, SharonBurton.com. I'll also be showing you the website information at the end of this. So those are some of the things that I do. I'd also like to welcome today in our supporting role Jack Malasana of ProSpring. If you have a question during the webinar, go to the chat window, put your question in the chat window. Jack will be happy to help you. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to ProSpring Technical Staffing for supporting these webinars. They're actually my only sponsor right now. ProSpring, of course, is where you want to go if you are looking to hire technical staff. And they also run the LavaCon conference. So in October of 2012, the conference is going to be in Portland. I'm going to be there. All the cool people are going to be there. And you should definitely go. It's a really good conference. Okay, so now that we've set the expectations on how this all works, let's start with defining our problem. My very, very favorite post to any news group, LinkedIn group, any group is always, "Dear group, tell me the best product for creating my content. Love, Writer." Well, the truth of the matter is there is no best tool because all the tools kind of do stuff. The best tool is the one that meets your needs, and understanding what your needs are is step 1 to finding the best tool. So if you think that you need some new tools, the first thing you need to understand is that nobody gets new tools because. Not even me, and I own my own company. Tools solve problems. And the problem is never, well, we're using old tools, or there's a new tool out and it's shiny and I want it. Businesses will never ever get you a new tool because it's shiny and you want it. They don't care about old tools. They care about business stuff. And it's important that we understand the business stuff they care about before we approach them to ask for new tools. Businesses are going to approve funding for things for one of 3 reasons. The first one is it's going to reduce a cost. So you have to think about what it is you're doing and think about it costs us X number of dollars to do Y thing. If we change the way that we're doing things to this new way, whether it's change our process or buy a new tool or some combination of that, we're going to save X number of dollars every time we do Y. So that's a cost reduction. We're going to reduce the costs by getting a new tool by doing things a different way. Then there's cost avoidance. If we spend these dollars now, we don't have to, and then the cost avoidance would be something like maybe we don't have to hire another writer or hire some contractors to meet deadlines or get new computers or do any of these other expensive things. So there's a cost avoidance argument that one can make. Another reason, the third reason that businesses do things is you're going to be able to increase revenue. So if we spend this money now, it's going to allow us to penetrate a new market, deliver more products, provide better information products, that kind of thing. It's still a cost issue, but you're tying it to the business's other objectives, in this case, increasing revenue. That's it. There are no other reasons why a business wants to spend money. So any discussion that you want to have with your boss about tools, you must make the business case. You have to. So, and that's what this is. This is making the business case, tying what you want to the goals of the business. So, to build a business case, you have to demonstrate how, if we spend X number of dollars now, we can avoid the cost of Y, reduce the cost of Y, or increase revenue, which I didn't put on the slide, but increase revenue. Usually for TechCom, for social media, that kind of thing, you're usually looking at avoidance or reduction costs. So then you need to define the cost of Y. What is Y costing us? So if we spend $20,000 on new tools and training, it will reduce the cost of content development by one new writer. In other words, if we spend $20,000 on new tools and training, we won't have to spend $75,000 hiring a new writer. That $75,000 would be, of course, the fully loaded, how much it costs to buy their equipment, how much it costs, in payroll taxes, all of that. So if this were the case that we were making, we would say that the return on investment here, how long it will take us to make the money back that we've invested, is 14 weeks. Pretty straightforward. Now, that is not everything that you've ever thought of for business cases. You'll be getting a link if you've attended the webinar or you signed up for the webinar. You'll be getting a link to some more documents that will help you build a business case. That's an entire conversation all by itself. I just wanted to touch bases on that so that you understood that's how we have to frame our argument. So if we've decided that we think we need new tools, we have to approach our management as a business case. So now let's look at how we decide what it is that we need. Now that we know how to talk to our bosses, let's look at how we decide what we need. And I really like that picture, by the way. I don't know about you, but I think that picture is really great. I just thought it was shiny and cool and neat, and I liked it. All right, step one. When I have customers come to me and they say, we think we need new tools, but we're not sure, what I do is I talk to them about what are your problems, because tools solve problems. And until we've identified the problems that you have, we can't figure out how to solve those problems. So in this slide and the next slide, I am including some common problems that come to me to kind of spark your imagination. You may have some or all of these problems. You may also have other problems. So the first one, the most common one, is we could reuse content, but our current tools don't allow it. So perhaps you're working in Microsoft Word, which is a very common tool. And the way that you're currently reusing content, and I'm doing air quotes there, reusing content, is you're copying and pasting from one document to another. Now, while that is in fact reusing content, it does meet the requirements of reusing content, you're not leveraging your content smartly. Because if you've copied and pasted that content across 14 different documents, what do you do when that content needs to change? You have to remember all the documents that it was copied into, and you're not going to. You're not, or worse, you're not even going to realize that content's been copied into 14 documents. You think it's only in this one. You make the change for it in one, and now all the other copies are out of sync. So that's not an effective way to reuse content. There are smarter and better ways to do that. It could be that you're manually post-processing a lot of stuff to get your outputs. So once you've built your output in whatever tool you're using, you're having to do some manual adjustments to get the outputs the way you need it. That's a waste of time, because every time you publish your deliverable, you have to do this again. It's not, and if you're only delivering one, that's a little bit of time, but if you're delivering 10 things, that's a lot more time. Not good. My favorite, and I have created 400-page manuals in Microsoft Word. A very common one, if you're working in Word, is that you're wasting a lot of time reformatting the same documents over and over and over. 3 times this week I've had to reformat this 400-page Word document because Word helped, and it threw out all the formatting that I applied and replaced it with random formatting. That is an astonishing amount of time. And you shouldn't have to do that. There are better ways to do this, and that's costing your company a lot of time because they're paying you the same whether you're generating new content or you're reformatting your Word document for the third time this week. Your company would rather pay you to generate new content. Localization costs is a big one for a lot of companies. Whether or not you are currently translating your content into other languages, it is a global world, and a lot of companies are looking at, gosh, we need to be localizing this, and we have not written our content very smartly. We haven't reused things, we haven't standardized, etc. And the estimates we're getting for our localization are more than we spent developing the content the first time. We've got to figure out a smarter way to do this. One that I'm really seeing right now is new formats are being added. We're in a wild west right now of new delivery formats, and for most of us, ebooks or mobile devices are the big one. I was talking to a guy the other day, and they do equipment, big digger equipment, things that dig, and big giant cranes and big things like that. And so there's no online help for them. They've always delivered printed manuals, and the printed manuals live inside the big trucks. Well, their customers are starting to ask now for those same manuals in ebook format. And the tools they're using, they never ever thought of this. And so the tools they're using are not necessarily the best tools for this. So they're having to rethink this whole thing. I personally am very excited about this Wild West. I think what we'll be delivering in 5 years and how we deliver our content in 5 years is going to be very different than how we're doing it now. And I'm really excited about it. But looking at these new formats, the tools you may be using might be completely inappropriate for these new formats. Other problems, and this is one I'm seeing a lot. Deadlines are getting more aggressive, but you can't get more headcount. Or what I'm seeing is you can get more headcount, but what you really need are 3 people, and you're getting approval for 1, which means you've got to work smarter. You've been working as hard as you can. There is no more working harder. Now you've got to work smarter, and the tools you're using aren't necessarily letting you do that. Big one, content development process is slow and hard. I know of a company who, from the time that somebody says the content on the website is wrong to the time the content is available, it's been updated and is now available on the website, it's a 6 to 9 month process. So if you find one word that is the wrong word on their website, it's going to take them 6 to 9 months to get all the way through the process to release the topic that fixes that one word. That's not sustainable. And that's crazy. That's crazy. But if you are limited by the tools you're using, that this is in fact how long it's going to take, and usually this is also partly a process issue, but given the tools you're using, the process is the process. You really can't come up with a different process. That's just craziness. Because every time somebody finds something wrong on the website, they're going to have to call support. So you're increasing customer support by using the wrong tool and having a poor review process. So not good. And one I see a lot is adding a team in India or China or some other location that needs access to the content. And the tool you're using worked perfectly fine as long as it was the 3 of you sitting in cubes next to each other. But now that you've added a group that's 8 to 12 hours off from you, they're in your content at 1 in the morning, your time, and this isn't going to work anymore. It's just not. There's a lot of benefits to adding a team, a geospatially team, that's the phrase I like, the geospatially located team. There's a lot of benefits you'll get from doing that, but if you're using tools that were never built for that, it's going to be nothing but headaches. Hiring more people, and your process takes forever to learn. I'm in no way criticizing you, but in my experience, the shoemaker's children have no shoes. We document things for a living, but most of us are under such serious time pressures, we simply never have the time to document our own processes. So it's all tribal knowledge. And teaching people how to do what we do through tribal knowledge can be very difficult. So this is partly a process issue, but it can also be a tools issue, because if you're doing things in the tool that really are strange and odd, and none of that's documented, then every time new people need to do that, maybe you bring in a contractor, then the staff is going to have to stop what they're doing to walk the contractor through. And then at the end of the project, the contractor goes away, new project, you bring in another contractor, rinse and repeat. Not sustainable. And then of course all of these things kind of point to the way you're currently doing things is simply not scalable. It's all fine as long as you do things exactly the way you're doing them. You don't add new people, you don't add new delivery outputs, you don't change anything. It all works. But the minute you start changing any part of any one of the variables, the whole thing's going to fall over. So most of the things on this slide speak right to the way we do things is simply not scalable. So you may have many of these problems, you may have all of these problems, and you may have other problems. I'm just going over the ones that I see from clients who come to me. So the point here is to start you thinking and sit down and start making a list. Do not try and initially create this list in a from most important to just brainstorm with yourself. Just sit down with a piece of paper or a computer, however you're comfortable, and just start making a list of all the things that aren't working for you, for all the problems that you see. Make a list. And once you've got that list pretty well fleshed out, start breaking each problem into small parts. So one of your problems might be the way we're doing things isn't scalable. Now start breaking that down into what does scalable, not scalable mean? What would scalable look like? What concretely would fixed look like for you? And then identify the priority. And I use these 3 priorities. You may want to use these, you may wish to use others. But I identify the priorities as follows. Urgent. Urgent means it is major dollar impact if it's not fixed. In other words, we are paying people a lot of money to reformat the same Word documents over and over and over. This is impacting our ability to create new content. This is impacting our deadlines. This is not going to work. So there's a big dollar amount that's associated with that. Good is serious, but it's workable if we don't fix it. So in other words, yes, we do spend some time fiddling with the output once we've built it, but it's not a lot of time. We've kind of got some scripts that do most of it. It'd be nice if we didn't have to remember this. It would be nice if we could just get it like the way we want it right out of the box. But we could cope if we can't get it fixed. And then there's the bonus to fix, the stuff that may have no dollar impact. It might, but typically they don't. But boy, it would just be nice to fix. You know, maybe you're using a product and the usability just stinks. You know, it just stinks. And you'd like to move to something that the usability is better. There's not necessarily a dollar amount associated with that, but man, if you have to do X one more time, you're going to scream. It's not that it's hard, it's not even as difficult, it's just irritating that you have to do it time after time. So there's the bonus to fix stuff. And then, especially with tech pubs, you want to think about, are there other groups or other processes that you need to fit in with? Typically, in my experience, where we touch other groups, the touch points are usually for the review processes or the build delivery processes. And we've got to think about, are there ways that we touch those groups that we can't change? Or are there ways that we touch those groups that we can change, but we're going to need to be sophisticated about it? We can't just dump an entire new review process on people if they really, really like the review process that we currently use. So that doesn't mean we can't change it, it just means we're going to have to get their buy-in before we do it. And then where is it that we need to grow in the next 1, 3 to 5 years? I said it's a wild west out there right now of delivery formats. And it absolutely is. So think about, what is it that we're going to need to be delivering in the next year, the next 3 years, and the next 5. Now, given that it's a wild west out there, it's hard to know what we're going to be delivering in the next 3 to 5 years. But if we're pretty sure we're going to have to stay up to date on those delivery processes, maybe we need to think about developing our tool in an agnostic sort of way. Maybe XML is the way we need to go, because that lets us have some flexibility in the outputs that we deliver. Maybe that's something we need to think about. Now that you've got your list and you've identified the importance of the problems, link your problems list to the costs that are avoided, reduced, or revenue generated to your company. What you're doing is you're showing why this problem is the business's problem. And if you can't make this link, the company is not going to get you new tools, because you haven't shown how this is the business's problem. And the business doesn't care if it's not the business's problem. That's why I went over developing a business case to start with, to kind of help you start thinking about that. Because until you have tied your problems to dollars that the company is spending that they don't need to spend, they're not going to have any interest in getting you new tools. Okay, notice how we haven't talked about what tools are out there yet. It's because we don't care. It doesn't matter what tools are out there. Before we can even begin to think what tools are out there, we've got to identify what our problems are. Where do we hurt? Where are we broken? Where do we hurt? What is that costing? What is that costing us or preventing us from making? We've got to focus on that, because that's what this detailed list is going to help us identify. Where are we broken, and what would fixed look like for us? All of this is called a needs analysis. Now, a needs analysis, I have a spreadsheet that I use. Not every question that is possible to ask is included on that spreadsheet, but it's a starting place for me. And then as I have the conversation with the client, out of those questions, other questions arise. So you'll get a link to this tomorrow in the follow-up email. I want you to feel free to use it, reuse it, change it, adjust it. For those of you who are viewing the recording, it's available on my website, SharonBurton.com. It's a spreadsheet. Feel free to download it. I'm not going to show it here now because I'm not. It's outside the scope of this recording right now, but it is absolutely available on my website, and you are absolutely welcome to use it. Okay, so now what? We've identified what your company cares about. We've identified what's broken and why it's broken. Now what do we do? Now we can start thinking about tools. The temptation is always to start with a tool that you really want because it's shiny and then make it fit your needs. That's backwards. Do not think about feature sets. Think about solutions to your problems. This is why we went through the process of identifying what our problems are before we started thinking about tools. Because we don't want to make a tool fit our needs. We want to find out what our problems are and then find a tool that solves those. So decide what level of tools fit your problems. Next slide I'll talk about that. Just hang on. Think about that, and there's a typo there, and that's free at no extra cost to you. Think about that 1, 3, and 5-year plan. Think about, are there other groups in your company that have the same issues? Maybe there's a training group in your company and they've got the same problems. If so, maybe you guys should be working together to find a tool that fits everybody's needs, and there are tools out there that can do that. So that's what we need to think about, not feature sets. Because I have a note for you about feature sets. Features are nice. Everybody's got them. Everybody says their feature set is the best. Everybody says that they're the #1 tool in the industry. Everybody says that they save all of their customers millions of dollars. I've worked for 2 vendors. I'm here to tell you, everybody has features. Everybody has the best product. Okay, well, obviously it's not possible for everybody to be the #1 selling product, and it's not possible for everybody to have the best feature set. You don't care about feature sets. You care about a solution to your problem. And those aren't features. And just as a thought, in the content authoring and publishing world, most of the tools available do the similar stuff. How they do it may be different, but most of them do similar stuff, which is why it's important that you look at what's important, what your problems are, to see if your problems are solved in these products, because that's where the differentiator starts to happen with the products. It just does. That's where it starts to happen. All right. This is my personal division. Don't think that you can go out into the world and everybody knows about this division of products, because I have not talked to everybody yet. So not everybody knows about this, but this is how I divide them up in my head. There's the shrink wrap product. The shrink wrap product, always there's a trial for you to download. You can download it, you can pull your content in, and you can start working with your content. Do that, and then start working through your list to see how it matches. Is this product solving your problems in a way that solves your problems? Okay, so that's a shrink wrap. Then there's the larger group stuff. There will probably be a trial, but not always. And don't let that bother you if there isn't a trial. You are probably going to need to work with a salesperson, certainly to get your content in, and to start working with it. Larger group products typically need some configuration before you can start working with it, which is why there may not be a trial. And don't panic if there isn't, because that just means that somebody needs to help you get it set up to work with the trial. Then there's the enterprise level. And the enterprise level, there is not a trial to work with. These are big products that usually are appropriate for big groups. Remember I said you may have like a training group that you should be working with? These are cross-group products. There should not be a trial to play with. You are almost certainly going to need to work with a salesperson. You're going to have to get them involved to get you set up with an environment so you can start working with that product. Okay? So don't run out in the world and think that this is a division that the entire world understands, but it's a way of thinking about the products that for me has helped a lot. So start working through your list. You should somehow be able to get your content into that tool and start working through your list. Never ever, 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 never, never accept a generic demo as proof that the tool does what you need. Don't do it. I have worked for 2 vendors. The data that they're showing you in their tool has been carefully groomed and created to work perfectly in their tool. And I'm not saying they're bad for that. When you're doing a public demo for 500 people, the last thing you want is that uncertainty. I wonder if this is going to work. So of course we create, when I've worked for the vendors create content that's going to work really well in their product so they can focus on the demo and not focus on what on earth just happened. But that means that what they're showing you is not necessarily representing what your content is going to be like in their product. So if the vendor will not let you get your content in and let you work with the product, you're working with the wrong vendor. There's just simply no way that you can make a reasonable evaluation of a product without getting some of your content in. I'm not saying all of your content. It is unreasonable for the vendor to work with you to get every scrap of your content in for an evaluation. That's unreasonable. Don't expect that. But certainly you should be able to take a good example of your content, like a book or a big help file or something like that, and get that into their tool and work with it to see if it's working with your content. And if the problems that you need solved are in fact being solved in a way that you think makes sense. Other things to consider, and there are other things to consider here beyond the tools. Training. What's it going to take to get your people up and trained in this product? Do they have a training program available, or is this done by third-party people? One of the things I do is train people. Is that available? If you've got a group and serious deadlines, and if you look at the spreadsheet that I've made available to you, one of the things I ask is how technically sophisticated is the staff? So if you've got a couple of people who are really sophisticated in tools and they really like it, maybe you send them to training and then they do in-house training for the rest of your staff. Now if you do that, make sure that you assign that responsibility as part of their job description, because for the first month or two they're going to probably spend 80% of their time training people. And if they're still being held to their deadlines, that's an unreasonable situation. Clearly they can't make their deadlines if they're spending 80% of their time training other people. So make sure that you just do that. And then plan for adding more people. Is the product that you're going to choose something that there are a lot of people out there who know how to use it, or is it more specialized? Just because it's specialized doesn't mean you shouldn't get it if it's the right tool for you. But be aware that when you bring new people in, you may have to spend time training them. That whole training thing may need to just keep happening. So as long as you know that when you choose the tool, that's a good thing. And then plan for increasing all of the staff knowledge through some in-house training. I personally, when I'm docs manager, I like to do brown bags. Brown bags are a great way. Everybody comes together for lunch in the office, in a meeting room with a projector, and then somebody does a presentation on something cool they've discovered how to do in the product. One of the things I like to do when you first change tools, it's kind of a stressful time. People can get frustrated. They know how to do things in the old tools, and as they're learning to do things in the new tools, it can be really frustrating. And so I like to set up a brown bag with the ground rules that everybody's going to meet and complain about the product and all of this for an hour. Everybody's going to bring all the things that they're finding frustrating and irritating for an hour. And I tell people, bring your sense of humor. And usually what happens is you kind of have a bitch fest, but people wind up laughing, and sometimes you wind up with some brainstorming. It can be very good, and it kind of lets people get that frustration out, and very often, because they all wind up laughing, they can go back to work kind of renewed. They've had a chance to get some of that frustration out, and now they can go back to it and get their head down. And sometimes there's some really good brainstorming on, oh, I know, I had that same problem, but I figured out this, let me show you. And then everybody goes, oh my gosh, I didn't know. So it can be a really good way to kind of build the team, get everybody on board, and let people share their frustration, because it can be frustrating changing tools. It just can. Support. During the evaluation, were you getting support? And by that I mean, if you sent a question to the vendor, did you get a response in a reasonable time period, or did it take 2 weeks for them to get back to you? When people got back to you, did they seem to care that you got an answer? Overall, were they responsive to your needs? Yes, you may have been peppering them with questions, but that's part of their job, is to answer those questions while you're evaluating. Did you get answers that you understood? This is always a big one. Did you understand the answers you got, or did you get answers that were in a language you've never even thought of? And when you asked for clarification, they acted like you were dumb. If that's what you're getting, this may not be the right vendor for you. If the vendor is working with you to make sure that you understand no matter what, they're just jumping through hoops, this is a good thing. Can the company support you during your transition? In other words, do they have maybe a professional services team that can help you get your content into the tool? Because they're experts in the tool, it may be faster for them to do this for you, even though you'll have to pay for that. It may be cheaper in the long run for you to pay them to do that than for you to do it yourself. Because remember, you're learning the tool at the same time you're getting your content in. And you've probably got deadlines. You probably can't just sit the whole team down for 6 months while you guys convert to this new tool. Nobody can do that. So can they support you? Are there specialists in the public market? Are there people who could help you during this transition by maybe converting the content or creating your templates or that kind of thing? That's something that I often help my clients with. If that's something that they don't feel confident they could do in the time frame they need, that's something I can help with. And that's something that the vendor should help with, or they should be able to point you to somebody like me. Or you should be able to ask, on LinkedIn, something like that. There should be people like me out there available for the tool that you're looking for. Ultimately, during this transition, you've still got to meet your business goals. And if you say it's going to take 3 months to make this transition, and in fact it takes 6 months, this is a problem. So keeping in mind how to make this transition is a good thing to think about. Something else to think about: how often is this tool updated? If it's being updated every quarter, or worse, every month, that may mean that there's just too many bugs. This is a buggy product, and they are fixing those bugs. Now, if it's being updated once a quarter, that could also mean that the company is being very responsive to bugs that the customers are finding. That the product is overall stable, but people are finding some things, and the company is just being really responsive. So you've got to use your judgment there. You can't just take this as, well, Sharon said. You've got to use your judgment here. If they're only updating the product every 18 to 24 months, though, that may not be enough. Given that we're in this wild west of delivery options, if it's 2 years before they update, that just simply may not be enough. Your customers may demand a new output format, and it's 18 more months before this vendor is going to update their product. So that's a problem. If they're only updating it annually, that may be okay, but look at it. Are they updating it annually, and really what they're doing is they're moving a couple of menu options and maybe adding a feature? That's not really an update, is it? I mean, it is, but it's not. Are the updates in other? So really take away from this, how often is the tool updated and what does that mean? Are they updating it frequently? Are they being responsive to customers? Are they updating it with new delivery formats? Are they staying on top of things? That kind of thing. Something to think about, is the tool extendable? Is there a software developer's kit available? This may not be something that you care about. It could be that you have no interest in that. But, especially for the enterprise level products, you may need that. And knowing that that's available and knowing it's accessible to you may be something that you need. You may need to be able to use that. And then the vendor should send you to current users to talk to. Now, of course, the vendor is going to send you to the customers who are so happy with the product they can't stand it. They're stopping people in the Kmart parking lot. For those of you who are international, Kmart's just a large, low-cost shopping thing. So they're going to send you to those people. So you also want to go on a Tech Whirl or into a LinkedIn group or multiple groups and ask, is anybody using product X? If you are, can you contact me offline? And you do want to take these things offline. If somebody is unhappy, you want to talk to them offline. It's not professional to do that in the full light of day. But when they tell you, if somebody says, oh yes, we used that product and I hated it, ask them why. It may be that they bought a shrink wrap product trying to solve an enterprise level product and then were no end of frustrated because, of course, the shrink wrap level product doesn't solve any of the enterprise level products. So they didn't do their needs analysis properly. They bought the wrong kind of product for the problems they were trying to solve and then were no end of frustrated when the wrong product didn't solve their problems. So make sure that when you talk to them, you actually talk to them. Don't just say, well, Joe Smith says he hated the product, so clearly it's a bad product. Find out why. Do your due diligence here. And then a last note. Evaluating tools is like dating. So don't fall in love with the tool because it's shiny. You make sure you understand what it is that you need out of this marriage before you marry them. Because buying a tool is like being married. And if it's not going well while you're dating, if the evaluation process isn't going well, what on earth makes you think that it's going to get better when you get married? Once they've got your money, do you really think they're going to take better care of you than when you were dangling the money out there? I mean, I hate to sound, it sounds almost, not nice, but it's true. If you're not being treated well before, what makes you think you're going to be treated well after? Okay, so think about that. All right, so that's the webinar. Thank you so much. Fantastic. My website, www.sharonburton.com. There is that spreadsheet. That worksheet is available for you to download. You'll get that link tomorrow. If you're interested in following me on Twitter, my Twitter name is Sharon Burton, all one word. If you have any questions or comments, thoughts, concerns, anything like that, you've got my email address right there. And you should get a link to the recording tomorrow. Thank you so much. I hope you got something of value to you. Again, let's send a big shout out to my sponsor, ProSpring. If you need to have any technical staffing needs met, prospring.net is the place to go. And thank you guys so much.